Yeah, I'm getting the
Okay.
grips of all the new stuff in it right now, adjusting it and everything. I stopped at a place and instead of
Okay.
talking about it now.
Let's say hello and welcome everybody to the next session of the Silmarillion Book Club, the Casual Book Club, Estelle Pod, number 12. It's been a while. We've all been busy doing the raids and work and whatnot. Hi Michi and hi Heraldus and hi everybody else who's joining us in the podcast. Say hi.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, Ollie.
Yeah,
Before I go, I'm on to chat. But did you see that the Lord of the Rings TV show will be set in the second?
I did see it on Facebook, and I'm super excited that if they are gonna cover Numenor and all that stuff, because like yeah, we're gonna be moving into the Numenor soon enough in this podcast series as well. But yeah, if they do that, then just wow. That'll be like everybody's dream, a Silmarillion TV show. And if they're not gonna do the first stage, but if they're gonna just do the second stage, then that's way more than many of us had thought that was possible.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked personally. But,
Yeah,
I'll talk to you
yeah,
guys later. All right? I
yeah.
gotta go.
We'll catch you later. Thanks for dropping by. Hey, Quesadilla. You have your mic muted. I was hoping to drag somebody else in here with us, but I think it's gonna be just me and you again, Michi, like always. I know, right? Same old voices, but it's fine. The history of the Silmarillions, Quenta Silmarillion, Chapter 7 of the Silmarils and the Unrest of the Noldor, Part 2, because we dropped that chapter, we divided that into two parts, because I don't know why I did it. I think I was just lazy, that's why I did it. See, I'm admitting it. But here you go, without further ado. Then there was great unrest in Tirion, and Finwë was troubled, and he summoned all his lords to council. But Fingolfin hastened to his halls and stood before him, saying, King and father, wilt thou not restrain the pride of our brother, Curufinwë, who is called the Spirit of Fire, all too truly? By what right does he speak for all of our people, as if he were king? Thou it was who long ago spoke before the Quendi, bidding them accept the summons of the Valar to Aman. Thou it was that led the Noldor upon the long road through the perils of Middle-earth to the light of Eldamar. If thou dost not now repent of it, 2 sons at least thou hast to honor thy words. Whoa, right from the start, I think it's just so amazing of the Silmarillion that every time you read it, you immediately get all the flashbacks of where you were at the story. It's just amazing. I'm not gonna. So, before I get into the explanation of this passage, I do want to preface it by saying that I have been kind of slacking in these podcasts, and I shouldn't be, because not like Lord of the Rings story and the Hobbit story are really, really great, and they are perfect in how it was written by Tolkien, but something about the Silmarillion is just a whole different vibe, a whole different level kind of thing. And by someone who's aware of the story of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, if they read the Silmarillion afterwards, they can just see so many different points where You see the foreshadowing and everything, because not many people know, but the Silmarillion is not a prequel. I know, like, many people even have hard time, since the movies of The Hobbit came out after the movies of The Lord of the Rings. Many people have this false assumption that Hobbit is a prequel to The Lord of the Rings. It wasn't. A prequel is something that is written after the main text. So you write a story and then you write something else as a something that happens before the story that you wrote, then that's the prequel. That's not the true. The Lord of the Rings is the sequel of The Hobbit. The Hobbit is not a prequel to The Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit was written before The Lord of the Rings. It's an original text, and that came after. Same goes for the Silmarillion, in the way that the Silmarillion were the early stories of Tolkien, who was writing this in his youth, in his early teens, in his 20s, before he even began The Hobbit. So the Silmarillion is not a prequel, it's the original, which was written before The Lord of the Rings and before The Hobbit. These are his early visions of a thought, and all he did later was try to connect those, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, to the greater story of the Silmarillion. I just wanted to say that before I got into this passage. What do you think about that, Michi?
I appreciate the additional explanations that I might not have looked into myself.
Yeah.
As you're saying, I'd never really thought of the Silmarillion.
Yeah, because like the movies of the Hobbits came out afterwards, and many people, like even in the internet and me talking to many people, have like, yeah, the Hobbit is a prequel, and that's just not true. The Hobbit is not a prequel. The Hobbit is the original text he wrote for his kids when he had kids, and the Lord of the Rings is a sequel, which was only connected to the Hobbit via, he thought of a way to connect the Lord of the Rings story to the Hobbit via the ring and Gollum. Okay, let's go into it. So where we are at the story right now in the Silmarillion, so after Fëanor starts to openly rebel against the Valar, obviously his brothers are not aboard with it, and maybe many of the other Noldor aren't either. We don't really know that, because only people who are talking are just the protagonists, and not like the rest of the Noldor and what the rest of the people's thoughts were. But they're like, hey dude, you don't speak for us, you're not our king. So there's unrest in Tirion. Tirion, as you know, was the place where the Noldor were settling at that time. Remember, Tirion upon Tuna is where the Noldor dwell. The Vanyar, on the other hand, dwell at the foot of Taniquetil, while the Teleri, on the other hand, just to get everybody sorted, like where all the factions of the elves are at. So Noldor at Tirion, Vanyar, the high elves, at the bottom, at the feet of Taniquetil, which is the mountain where Manuel lives. And the Teleri, on the other hand, are in Tol Eressëa. So seeing all these rumors and rebellion and unrest, Finwë, who is the king of the Noldor, he calls his lords. To council to try to resolve this. Remember that Finwë absolutely loves Fëanor. Misha, remember that when Fëanor's mother died, all that love that his father had for his mother just all went to this only son that he had with that woman. Yes. So Fëanor is the most beloved of of Finwë, without a doubt. Like, nothing against his other two sons, who are pretty awesome indeed. But Fëanor is it that who receives the bulk of the love that that his father has towards a son. That he had for his wife, all got poured into Fëanor. Fëanor is the last thing her wife gave to him before she passed away. Passed away in the sense, passed to the halls of Mandos. So Fingolfin, who is a son of Finwë from his second wife, who was a Vanyar, he comes before his father and asks him, like, "Are you king? If so, then why is our brother speaking as if he is the king?" And also reminding Finwë that it was indeed Finwë who convinced the Noldor in the first place to answer the summons of the Valar, answer the summons of Orome, when Orome went to seek the elves to try to find them, and he called, and then he could selected three leaders of the kings of the elves: Finwë, Ingwë, and Elwë. And Finwë was the one who answered the call. So it was indeed Finwë who convinced the Noldor to answer the summons of Valar and come here in the first place. That's what his son from his second wife are demanding here. Like, what's up with that? In a way. Okay, Michi, you take the next one.
But even as Fingolfin spoke, Fëanor strode into the chamber, and he was fully armed. His high helm upon his head, and at his side a mighty sword. "So it is, even as I guessed," he said. "My half-brother would be before me with my father, in this as in all other matters." Then turning upon Fingolfin, he drew his sword, crying, "Get thee gone, and take thy due place." Fingolfin bowed before Finwë, and without word or glance to Fëanor he went from the chamber. But Fëanor followed him, and at the door of the king's house he stayed him, and the point of his bright sword he set against Fingolfin's breast. "See, half-brother," he said, "this is sharper than thy tongue. Try but once more to usurp my place and the love of my father, and maybe it will rid the Noldor of one who seeks to be the master of thralls." These words were heard by many, for the house of Finwë was in the great square beneath the Minden. But again Fingolfin made no answer, and passing through the throng in silence, he went to seek Finarfin his brother. Well.
Wow. Paul is right. Like, holy crap. I told you Fëanor is a troubled person. So remember, Fëanor and his sons started making weapons once they gave into the rumor of Melkor about the Valar, and on top of it, he is the one who believes that Fingolfin wants to become king. Well, the dude came prepared, and when he saw Fingolfin before the king, it only solidified his suspicions about the rumor, because, you know, like, Melkor had been telling rumors that if Fingolfin just wants to overthrow you and, like, surpass you in the hierarchy and become king after Finwë. When he sees him before Finwë, he just, like, reassures himself, wrongly obviously, but he reassures himself that well, there you go, as I suspected, Fingolfin wants to become king. And here you see the difference between the two, between Fëanor and Fingolfin. Fingolfin made no answer to all these threats and insults from Fëanor, and indeed in just doing so he showed his true character and wisdom. And you see the difference between the two characters and how they are written, or how they are in the context of the story. One is just really keen to getting to the judgment, while the other one is just patient and just ignores the insults that he just received and just takes his leave.
But then there's like a whole sort of onlookers who just saw the drama.
Yeah,
And where did
yeah. It was witnessed by people, and like always, the seed that was sowed by Melkor in now is just like reaping the rewards, and people are just seeing and then just making their own interpretations of the things. And it's not a good side anyways. Like in any form of kingdom hierarchy, if somebody is talking in front of the king or talking back towards the son of the kings, just is perceived as just like comes back to the weakness of the king. Now the unrest of Noldor was not indeed hidden from the Valar, but its seed had been sown in the dark, and therefore, since Fëanor first spoke openly against them, they judged that he was the mover of discontent, being eminent in self-will and arrogance. Though all the Noldor had become proud, and Manwë was grieved. But he watched and said no word. The Valar had brought the Eldar to their land freely, to dwell or to be depart. And though they might judge departure to be folly, they might not restrain them from it. But now the deeds of Fëanor could not be passed over, and the Valar were angered and dismayed. And he was summoned to appear before them at the gates of Valmar, to answer for all his words and deeds. There also were summoned all others who had any part in this matter, or any knowledge of it. And Fëanor, standing before Mandos in the Ring of Doom, was commanded to answer all that was asked of him. Then, at last, the root was laid bare, and the malice of Melkor revealed, and straightway Tulkas left the council to lay hands upon him and bring him to judgment. But Fëanor was not held guiltless, for he it was that had broken the peace of Valar and drawn his sword upon his kinsman. And Mandos said to him, "Thou speakest of thraldom. If thraldom it be, thou canst not escape it. For Manwë is king of Arda, and not of Aman only, and this deed was unlawful, whether in Aman or not in Aman. Therefore this doom is now made. For 12 years thou shalt leave Tirion, where this threat was uttered. In that time take counsel with thyself, and remember who and what thou art. But after that time this matter shall be set in peace, and held redressed, if others will release thee." Wow, speaking of bloody, there is a lot going on in this passage. Yeah. Okay. So the gods, the Valar, up to this point had been ignoring Fëanor, thinking that he will settle down and forget this mad crusade against his brother and the Valar. But when this doesn't happen, and he keeps on his rebellion, quote unquote rebellion. Finally, the patience of the gods, the Valar, runs out, and they summon the mother trucker, some bitch, to answer for all his words and deeds. Because, like, we have to make something clear here. The Valar are the guardians, the vice regents of Arda, of the whole of Arda, not just Earth, but pretty much the whole universe that exists in this fiction, or in this sub-creation. They are prophets and like gods and semi-gods and demigods and whatnot, and they have ignored enough, and now it's time for them to, when they discover that this is one person one mortal slash immortal, one being of creation which is lesser creation than the gods, than themselves, than the prophets, than the angels. They ask him to answer for his crimes in a way. They could have intervened sooner, and the true culprit obviously would have been identified sooner. But I'd say better late than never. But finally, everyone, like, maybe they're exercising patience. Maybe they're just like taking it slow. We are like gods here. This is a sub being, children of Iluvatar. We have to be like patient with him. We have to be patient with him. But if they had intervened sooner, they would have discovered that it was Melkor who all along was the one who was just fooling them and the Noldor as well. But finally, everyone finds out that it was Melkor who had been sowing all these lies among the Noldor to corrupt them against the Valar. But Fëanor, but one thing is clear here: like, Fëanor isn't without a guilt. He's not guiltless either. He had broken the sanctity of the blessed realm, because in that realm nobody had drawn a sword on his kin, but he was the first one to do that. So obviously he too needs to atone for this crime. And Mandos, as you know, is one of the Valar who knows everything, knows the past, present, the future. He listened to that music of the Ainur at the beginning really well, and he remembers everything. He knows what is going to happen. He's the one who sentences him to 12 years of exile from Tirion, just to reflect on his actions and atone and repent and learn from his mistakes and atone for his crimes. Another really great part of this section is Tulkas's reaction, and I was not gonna ignore that at all. Tulkas, if you remember, for those of you listening, following us on the podcast, remember Tulkas is the one who's the wrestler who likes to fight with his hands, and as soon as Tulkas hears, okay, it was Melkor behind all this shit, Tulkas just, he gets up and immediately goes to find Melkor, because he's ever the wrestler and really a badass fighter. A UFC fighter is what I imagine. I think of Tulkas, an ultimate fighter who just, okay, it was Melkor, I'm gonna go find him and kick his ass. Okay, you can take the next one. Or if you want to add any thoughts before that, Michi, go ahead.
I'm okay.
Okay, you take the next one.
Then Fingolfin said, I will release my brother. But Fëanor spoke no word in answer, standing silent before the Valar. Then he turned and left the council, and departed from Valmar. With him into banishment went his 7 sons, and northward in Valinor they made a strong place and treasury in hills. And there at Formenos a multitude of gems were laid in hoard, and weapons also, and the Silmarils were shut in a chamber of iron. Thither also came Finwë the king, because of the love that he bore to Fëanor, and Fingolfin ruled the Noldor in Tirion. Thus the lies of Melkor were made true in seeming, though Fëanor by his own deeds had brought this thing to pass, and the bitterness that Melkor had sown endured, and lived still long afterwards between the sons of Fingolfin and Fëanor.
Oh, that is so true.
So tragic.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think of this passage? What does it mean?
Isn't this more foreshadowing for like the later the stories between the sons of Fingolfin and Fëanor? Here's the seed of the initial insults.
What do you think of Fingolfin? Like, what's your impression of him so far?
Maybe just a bit too passive in the sense of not, like, the brothers don't speak as much to each other to sort of mend what Melkor has sown. They just seem to be like, oh, it'll pass. They'll get over it.
So, like, this passage kind of follows the last one in the sense, before we look at Fingolfin's action, the last line of the last passage was, if others will release thee. That's what Mandos is saying to Fëanor, that you will do the sentence and whatnot, and after your sentence is complete, then we'll reassemble and try to readdress what you did. With the last words are, if others will release thee. The other there mentioned is obviously Fingolfin, because he's the one who against whom the injustice was done in the action of drawing the sword, right? So Fingolfin is the other culprit, like, who has this power to forgive or not forgive Fëanor for this crime that he committed against him in breaking the sanctity of the Blessed Realm, in drawing a sword on him, being his brother and kin as well. So again, Fingolfin here is showing his true character. After all that his brother did and said, he's still forgiving him for all of that. But look at the contrasting reaction between Fëanor and Fingolfin. Afterward, like, this really amazing gesture, like, you drew the sword on him and broke all those rules, did all this bad thing, and he's still forgiving you without any, like, conditions or anything. He's just like, yeah, I will release thee of any, like, if you did anything wrong to me, I release you from that burden, that I forgive you. And in the end, to contrast that, he doesn't even thank him. He doesn't acknowledge what Fingolfin just did for him and what he just said for him. He doesn't. He says no word. He's just like, yeah, whatever, fuck off. It's just ridiculous in his, like, his arrogance and whatnot. Because remember, he is a spirit of fire. He is someone important. He is someone special for sure. Through him, much greatness and much great work has been created and made, and he has greatness in him, and he's not nothing. He has power and some magic in him to make these amazing Silmarils. But he also is arrogant and just really, really proud and arrogant. So Fëanor, he accepts his exile from Tirion. His sons, being ever so loyal to their father, also go with him. But look at that. We shouldn't be surprised here, seeing the relationship of Fëanor and Finwë. The daddy dearest also leaves his people and kingdom while he's at it, and he just leaves all that and goes with Fëanor. That's the kind of, like, unhealthy bond that he has with his son, that he leaves it all and just can't leave Fëanor alone, and he goes with him as well. And what ends up happening is exactly what kind of started it in the first place. Fëanor feared that Fingolfin will usurp the king and take over the rule of Noldor, and in the end it was his own deeds and actions that resulted in making it happen. Isn't that amazing? Like, Fingolfin never wanted it, but it's through his actions and deeds that it ended up being the story anyways, that Fingolfin becoming the king. I mean, just wow. Now Melkor, knowing that his devices had been revealed, hid himself and passed from place to place as a cloud in the hills, and Tulkas sought for him in vain. Then it seemed to the people of the Valinor that the light of the trees was dimmed, and the shadows of the all-standing things grew longer and darker in that time. It is told that for a time Melkor was not seen again in Valinor, nor was any rumor heard of him, until suddenly he came to Forminos and spoke with Fëanor before his doors. Friendship he feigned with cunning argument, urging him to his former thought of fight from the trammels of the Valar, and he said, "Behold the truth of all that I have spoken, and how thou art banished unjustly. But if the heart of Fëanor is yet free and bold, as were his words in Tirion, then I will aid him, and bring him far from this narrow land. For am I not a Valar also? Yea, and more than those who sit in pride in Valimar. And I have ever been a friend to the Noldor, most skilled and most valiant of the people of Arda." Melkor is kissing ass, Michi.
I just think, like, after all of this, like, wouldn't he just be seemingly to be just so much of a brown noser, right here?
Yeah.
Completely, like, just the words just
I'm
oozing
like,
out of his
how
mouth.
much would
Fëanor,
you
get with
hate?
it.
Yeah, how much would you hate Fëanor as a character if he still believes all that shit that he just told that Melkor just told
After
him?
like many moons of banishment, and then you're still gonna believe this guy comes?
Yeah. So Melkor went into hiding, and Tulkas, as you know, Tulkas wanted to kick some ass, was trying to find him everywhere. For a while he was able to evade the Valar, but eventually he goes to his last hope, to rekindle this malicious plan that he had. He goes to Fëanor, and he thinks that he has him all figured out, that he would just shame him a bit and tempt him again, and Fëanor would just do his bidding again and wage his war against the Valar. And I gotta say, he's not wrong. It's a good plan. All the Valar are looking for him. He can't really evade them forever in Valinor. He would have been caught, and this was a strategic move on his part, to go to the one person who still might be foolish enough to listen to him still, and he says all the right things to Fëanor to tempt him, to stroke his ego and pride. He has ego, he's prideful, he's proud, and he just wants to just give him a nice that sounds dirty. I won't say it on a Tolkien podcast, but yeah, just give him stroke his ego really, really well, just trying to tempt Fëanor. Okay, one last time, baby. Fëanor, do something for me. Rebel one more time, wage the war that I want you to wage, so that I can be saved. That was his plan.
Like, if this were the movie, there would be some music in the background that would have like some violins that would just
violins. One character thinking, pondering over, looking into the broken window or something, just trying to think, should I take his verse, or should I do it or not? Should I listen to this freaking god or not? Have you seen the TV show The Magicians?
I read the books. I probably only seen 1 or 2 episodes of the show. I enjoyed the books more than I enjoyed the...
I haven't read the books actually, but I am watching the show, and holy crap, that's a good show.
Well, it's a good book. I think that's probably the
Oh,
stronger
really? Yeah,
aspect. The
okay.
books
Yeah,
are fun.
yeah, as always. As always. Books are always going to be better. Uh, but yeah, I like how they're just like, I don't know if they're change. Are they change? So if you have read the books, like, are they changing much of the stuff from the books
Yeah,
to the shows?
I think so, but I think it's probably because I mean we could get off onto that topic once maybe we finish this, but I think that Magicians is pretty dark content. Like there are quite a bit
Oh,
of deaths and that stuff like that, and
yeah, there are pedophiles as well.
yeah, and a lot of like the sort of shady, darker sexual content and etc. illusions and stuff like that that I'm sure they could put on TV, but just to speeden up the storyline.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what else they've changed. I don't really watch the show that much.
Oh, I've only watched the show. I think I'm pretty much caught up on it. But yeah, like it had a kind of a Harry Potter vibe, and then yeah, it just you see the difference. It got dark. They have the molesting children author in there, and the graphic violence is there as well, like blood and whatnot. But yeah, I like that show a lot. But the way I kind of connect that to this is like the god aspect of it. Like, yeah, they have gods in that show as well, and we can think of the Valar as the gods, and like Melkor will be, I don't know, the beast, like one of the beast, right? He's the beast. He's the evil one. But okay, let's get back to it. Now, Fëanor's heart was still bitter at his humiliation before Mandos, and he looked at Melkor in silence, pondering if indeed he might yet trust him, so far as to aid him in his fight. And Melkor, seeing that Fëanor wavered, and knowing that the Silmarils held his heart in thrall, said at last, "Here is a strong place, and well guarded, but think not that the Silmarils will lie safe in any treasury within the realm of the Valar." But his cunning overreached him. His words touched too deep, and awoke a fire more fierce than he designed. And Fëanor looked upon Melkor with eyes that burned through his fair semblance, and pierced the cloaks of his mind, perceiving there his fierce lust for the Silmarils. Then hate overcame Fëanor's fear, and he cursed Melkor, and bade him begone, saying, "Get thee gone from my gate, thou jail crow of Mandos." And he shut the doors of his house in the face of the mightiest of all the dwellers in Ea.
Finally, he's come to his senses.
Finally, he has woken up. Wow. It's it's just wow. This is a good. Might be like, say, like just like a 10% redeeming quality of Fëanor. I'd say that he at least had fire enough, or had the mind power to perceive the thoughts of Melkor. That is not easy. Like, think Galadriel in Lord of the Rings. Like, none of the Aragorn and Legolas and what now were in front of her were able to perceive her mind, or like penetrate her mind. It's a power that's really, really powerful. She was able to do that, if you remember, right? Because if you remember the Lord of the Rings story, she was able to perceive the mind of Boromir, see like what he desired, the mind of Frodo and his doubts, and Sam and his dedication, and Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli and their pureness. She was able to perceive it, because this is the power that the Eldar have, that the elves have, to look into the minds of things. And Fëanor, even using this power on one of the gods here, showing that he is the spirit of the fire. He is all that we have been like told that he is. He's the greatest of the Eldar. He is the greatest of the elves, no doubt. terrible, bad decisions, ego, whatnot. That dim his reputation. But he is a strong, powerful spirit.
But he's looking at someone who's probably more used to like Melkor cloaking sort of for what he's really thinking,
Yeah.
or just acting a better part versus, what Galadriel's looking at are people who aren't as well versed at guarding what they're thinking. So it's probably a bit more apparent for her when she sees people, sort of thinking about what they desire.
Yeah, that's it. That is pretty much it. Yeah, like Galadriel is not. Although Galadriel will come into the story, I think. Yeah, I think she'll come into the story. Yeah.
I thought she was mentioned once, but just as like
No, she has a bigger part later, if
Okay.
I am not remembering wrong. But the thing at just to have a little off the top of my head, Galadriel history. Did you know that Galadriel was not a character that Tolkien imagined until Lord of the Rings? So, just to preface it in saying, Silmarillion is the first things he wrote. Galadriel is not in them. Then he starts writing The Hobbit. He gets the book deal, writes The Hobbit, becomes the famous children book of that era in the 1930s. After The Hobbit is released and gets all this reception and becomes so amazing, popular, he is asked, or actually he doesn't know. He goes to his publisher and says, "Okay, this is Silmarillion. I want to publish this now." And his publisher says, "Well, no, you won't. How about you just write a sequel to The Hobbit?" And after the rejection from the publisher, I think his publicist sent him away like 3 times. He asked to publish the Silmarillion, all these stories that we're reading now, and he was told, no, Silmarillion sucks, do not. And just go write a sequel to The Hobbit. That's a good story, you have a good thing going, write a sequel to The Hobbit. He starts writing the sequel to The Hobbit, and Galadriel is a pure creation of when he was writing a sequel to The Hobbit. Once he wrote Galadriel in the Lord of the Rings, then he secretly, or not secretly, but yeah, he's still privately writing these stories of the Silmarillion. And that's when Galadriel is retroactively inserted into the Silmarillion stories. So, in the beginning, she didn't exist, but only after her inception in The Lord of the Rings, in writing the sequel, Galadriel is invented, and then Galadriel is reinserted, or retroactively inserted into the stories of the Silmarillion. And she has there's 4 different kinds of Galadriels. I shouldn't go into it because I'm only remembering it off the top of my head by listening to the lectures of Corey Olsen, Tolkien professor, in the History of the Middle Earth series, where Christopher Tolkien posted all his father's notes of writing the stories in a chronological order. Starting from his early teens and all the way up till his death, and there you see 4 different versions of Galadriel, and you see the progression of it. When he first gets the concept of Galadriel, he inserts into it. She's not really that much of a big deal. Then on the second revision, she becomes a bigger deal. Then on the third revision, she becomes even a bigger deal. Then on the fourth one, she's she's the one who even refused Fëanor and shit like that.
Well, I mean, I have to say, in all of the writing and reading it as a child, I always just never thought Tolkien had the strongest female written character. I'm glad Galadriel got revised at this point, but we can't retroactively sort of do anything. It was quite a bit of time ago in history, and women weren't really very strong characters.
Yeah, that's a popular criticism of the female heroes, but That's only because of maybe what got kind of mainstreamed and wasn't maybe in the main book of the Hobbit or the main book of the Lord of the Rings. But him, I think maybe he was changing with times. Maybe when he started early in his teens, that wasn't really anything that he needed to concern himself. Well, there are no trans people in the Lord of the Rings. We can't really blame the guy for not having any trans people in the Lord of the Rings. But I think during the time, maybe before his death. But yeah, if you read the whole thing of it, he has always, at least a Silmarillion, not foreshadowing or trying to spoil anything that's to come, but there are like some badass female characters in the Silmarillion, which were not really in the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit, for example. You only have like Galadriel, who is really epic and awesome, or Eowyn or Arwen. Arwen, interesting fact. Have you read the Lord of the Rings books? Have you read them?
The books, yes.
Okay, so Arwen is not really present in the books at all.
No.
She's only in the appendices.
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta know, this dude loved writing, and they're only appendices because someone wouldn't allow him to write her into the main story for publishing reasons or not. They didn't even publish the whole book that he wrote, and they had to. They said we'll divide them into volumes because nobody will read this large a book. So we're not gonna do that because he had it ready, but they had him split it into 3 volumes: the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, and the Return of the King. But yeah, there's Arwen, there is Galadriel, and then there is what's her name? Eowyn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Eowyn. These are the 3 female
always
characters.
Like whinging and complaining and crying. And Eowyn, I was like, she's so much stronger in the book. In the movies, I was like, why did they cast this chick? She's always on the verge of crying. I got so angry. I was like, she's going to actually kill
the Witch King. Witch King who no man could kill. Like, she's none of them.
Crying. I'm like, stop crying and just kill him. Like,
they had him, they had her like doubt stuff, but in the book she's like, she's hiding Mary. Disobeying the king, hiding Mary, trying to fight, going into the battle as a man, and then like finally revealing herself to the Witch King, who, like, you know, like the Witch King, when he breathes, like most of the men just lose all hope and drop their swords and run away, screaming from the madness, and she stood up to the Witch King. Along with Meriadoc, but yeah, it's an interesting topic. Actually, maybe you know what? In April, I am going to a Tolkien seminar in Netherlands, where Corey Olsen will come as well as a guest. And they have asked me, like my friend Yana asked me to write a paper. Maybe I'll do a paper on the women in Tolkien lore. That'll be an interesting topic to write a paper on.
You should bring the Arwen necklace.
Hey, you know what happened to the Arwen necklace? Bloody hell. So, okay, so I was once a stupid kid, a stupid boy. I fell in love with this girl, and she's the one I bought the Arwen necklace for. Like, bloody hell, I think I even like saved money for like 3 months or something, got like 100 euros, and then I bought the necklace for her, and then I gave her that necklace, and well, we broke up. The bitch never returned the necklace.
No, as long as that word the B word's not in your paper, I was like, it's fine. But it would be a funny footnote being like, this kind of started. Anyway, we have 2 more pages of the passages to read, so should we
Yeah,
go
okay.
round back around?
Okay, I didn't. Okay. So Fëanor is now pondering if he should trust Melkor. Obviously, he has no love for the Valar. That is clear by now. Like, he's not into the gods at all. He's like, yeah, I don't care. After they exiled him, and Melkor is saying all the right things. If Melkor had just perhaps kept his mouth shut and just said what he said in the beginning and just let it try to affect Fëanor and let it rest in his mind and try to mess with him, he maybe he would have been successful, and maybe Fëanor would have trusted him. But the moment he mentioned the Silmarils, it was all over. You gotta know, Fëanor's love for the Silmarils is just like unlike anything we can imagine. He created them. He created, just to emphasize the point, he created something that even the Valar cannot create or can think how they were created. They were so pure, such a pure energy. They have a light of their own, and they emphasize or enhance light that's around them. They are just something really, really, I don't know how to say it in this, like something really, 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 what's the word, Michi? I'm looking for, like, original, something really, really, I really can't think of the words. The words have escaped me now. But yeah, there's something really, really pure energy in the sense that even the gods don't know how they were made. There was some intervention from Eru, maybe from God himself, from Ilúvatar, but he was able to create something. But so the moment Melkor mentions them, it's all over. The fire in the spirit of fire. He is the spirit of fire. So the fire that he had inside him awoke at the mention of his beloved Silmarils. And here again we see just some power inside these Silmarils, that even their mere name kindled some kind of fire in Fëanor, giving him some kind of power that he was able to see into the mind of a literal god. It's one of the gods. He was able to penetrate his lies and just look into the mind of a god. Remember the first time Melkor saw the Silmarils? He wanted them more than anything he has ever wanted before. Well, Fëanor perceived that lust and cursed Melkor and rejected him. So we can say, at least at this point in the story, Fëanor is not a complete moron after all. Can we agree on that, Michi?
Of course. Yes, now when it comes to the Silmarils, he's like, alright, I get you. I smelled you now. Better late than never.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, you take the next one.
Then Melkor departed in shame, for he was himself in peril, and he saw not his time yet for revenge. But his heart was black with anger. And Finwë was filled with great fear, and in haste he sent messengers to Manwë in Valmar. Now the Valar were sitting in council before their gates, fearing the lengthening of the shadows, when the messengers came from Formenos. At once Orome and Tulka sprang up. But even as they set out in pursuit, messengers came from Eldamar, telling them Melkor had fled through the Cal-Lakiria, and from the hill of Tuna the elves had seen him pass in wrath as a thundercloud. And they said that thence he had turned northward, for the Teleri in Alquilonde had seen his shadow going by their haven towards Araman. Thus Melkor departed from Valinor, and for a while the two trees shone again unshadowed, and the land was filled with light. But the Valar sought in vain for tidings of their enemy, and as a cloud far off that looms ever higher, borne upon a slow, cold wind, a doubt now marred the joy of all the dwellers in Aman, dreading they knew not what evil that yet might come.
Oh man, that's such beautiful writing. Like, I love that.
Like what? They didn't realize that this was happening before. So they lived in
Yeah.
total bliss,
Uh-huh.
didn't like think about it, and now I'm like, he's always been there. He's just been in work with, but now you're just aware of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, the last hope of Melkor failed him. He was in really, really true danger now. As soon as the Valar heard about his whereabouts, they were ready to pursue him. He would have been caught if he stayed there any longer or tried convincing other Noldor to rebel. Fëanor was his last hope, no doubt about that. That was all he put all his chips on, was on Fëanor, trying to convince him, but he fucked that up by mentioning the Silmarils, and he had no other option now than to just retreat again and go into hiding in Middle-earth, waiting for his next chance to take his revenge against the Valar and against the elves. It was time for just another strategic retreat for him. Again, we see an example of evil corrupting everything around it. We can see that about the light of the two trees being dimmed. When Melkor was there, the light of the two trees got dimmed. That's how evil works in the Tolkien universe, is where evil is, just things decay, things become dull, and it just becomes a barren land. And now that he was gone, the light of the two trees once again shone bright and beautiful, because that evil existence that was there was away from it. Okay, think that will close the chapter 7 of our Silmarillion book club. I'm kind of sad. I wanted to go longer, Michi. What about you?
Well, we have to get to the next chapter, but this is like the dip back into, because we haven't done this since December, right? So
Yeah, it's been a while.
how am I ever gonna finish the Silmarillion on my own?
No, I think
on another
I'm the
note-
only one who's gonna push you to finish it, and you're not gonna read it on your own.
I started to read further in, and then I just thought, I don't know how this connects with the rest
Wait,
of
we
it.
didn't
Let me
even
just-
finish the chapter 7? Bloody hell.
I did. I finished up in like chapter
Yeah, you
10, and then
finished
I
it,
just,
but
like,
I guess I stopped earlier for some reason. Wait, where did I stop?
But then I was like, if I get too far ahead, I get confused. So I was like, if I'm reading up to currently whatever it is we're going to discuss, then it will stay fresher in my mind as we are going through it.
Okay, I think I'm still on the bloody chapter 7. Wait, no. Let me see. I'm looking at it. I'm trying to look at it. Where did I end this?
But I did download Doom Patrol, so I will watch it when I'm on my way. I saved it for
I think I watched it.
I'm flying to California, and I'm gonna save it because I've been looking forward to it. It's a really good. Doom Patrol was always a very good comic book storyline, so and it got good
DC
reviews
one,
on
yeah.
on some of the sites that have reviewed that TV show. So I think it's better than Teen Titans or whatever it's been played off. I think it was alluded to from Teen Titans.
Yeah,
better
because some of the
review.
characters did appear in the Teen Titans show. Some of the characters did appear there. The robot guy appeared, and the girl who has her face all melting. She appeared
Yeah.
in the Teen Titans as well. Well, actually, yeah, this is a long chapter, the chapter 7. I think we're not going to be on the chapter 8. Silmarils and the Unrest of the Noldor. Okay. Let's see.
But I thought chapter 8 was relatively short in comparison, so when we move on to chapter 8, it's not going to be as, I thought chapter 7 more things happen.
Yeah, chapter 7 more things. I'm just trying to see where I ended it. Did I finish it or not?
You must have, because we did the second passage. You did the PDF for the second passage, part of chapter.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, next week is gonna be chapter 8. Actually, we can, if we want, we can maybe, what's the time here? We can do half of it. But you don't have the notes, right?
No.
Let me see. Hold up. I think I can send you.
Yeah, I just checked. I don't think the game's going to be ready, but we'll see. They've got 10 minutes to prove us wrong.
Oh, the game is gonna be ready.
I don't know. I mean, if it's not working now, I'm not sure that the 10 minutes is going to really be a great.
I sent you the ebook. That should in theory work.
I have the book itself.
Just go to chapter 8 then. That should work.
But I wasn't sure which passages you wanted to read from.
Yeah, let's see. I'm thinking I'm gonna just wing it. Okay. I'll do the first passage. The first paragraph. When Manwë heard of the ways that Melkor had taken, it seemed plain to him that he purposed to escape to his old strongholds in the north of Middle-earth, and Orome and Tulkas went with all speed northward, seeking to overtake him if they might, but they found no trace or rumor of him beyond the shores of the Teleri, in the unpeopled waste that drew near to the ice. Therefore the watch was redoubled along the northern fences of Aman, but not to no purpose, for ere ever the pursuit set out Melkor had turned back, and in secrecy passed away far to the south, for he was yet as one of the Valar, and could change his form, or walk unclagged, as could his brethren, though that power he was soon to lose forever. So, Manwë, the king of Aman, king of Arda, actually, the whole of the world, universe, heard the ways that Melkor had taken to escape, and he thought that he'll probably maybe head towards the strongholds of Angband and Thangorodrim that he had before. So he sent Tulkas and Orome, the hunter and the fighter, went to northward trying to see if they can find him, but he was not there. He went north first, but then eluded or deceived them, and instead came down south, and went as south as he could, by just changing forms and stuff like that. You take the next one.
Thus unseen he came at last to the dark region of Avathar. That narrow land lay south of the bay of Eldamar, beneath the eastern feet of the Pelori, and its long and mournful shores stretched away into the south, lightless and unexplored. There, beneath the sheer walls of the mountains and the cold, dark sea, the shadows were deepest and thickest in the world. And there in Avathar, secret and unknown, Ungoliant had made her abode. The Eldar knew not whence she came, but some have said that in ages long before she descended from the darkness that lies about Arda. When Melkor first looked down in envy upon the kingdom of Manwë, and that in the beginning she was one of those that he corrupted to his service. But she had disowned her master, desiring to be mistress of her own lust, taking all things to herself to feed her emptiness. And she fled to the south, escaping the assault of the Valar and the hunters of Arome, for their vigilance had ever been to the north, and the south was long unheeded. Thence she had crept towards the light of the blessed realm, for she hungered for light and hated it.
Oh wow, here comes the first mention of Ungoliant. Ungoliant, oh my goodness, Ungoliant. You know, my spider, and my first spider that I made in the Lord of the Rings Online was called Ungoliant. He deceived the trail. He's a good one at escaping it. He first went north, gave everybody the illusion that he was going to return to Middle Earth with his in his lost kingdoms, lost strongholds of Angband or Thangorodrim, but he came south instead, went deep south where the Valar pretty much were not really having any watch or having an interest, and there he eventually he again meets Ungoliant. So what's Ungoliant? Who's Ungoliant? Well, my theory is, I think it's correct in the sense that Ungoliant is one of the Maiar, I believe. She is one of the corrupted spirits that in the beginning, you know, when Melkor called out, a bunch of Maiar joined him. That's what the Balrogs are, or the dragons are. And she is one of those beings, a being who takes up the form of a spider, but is a Valar, is a Maiar. And he was able to bend her into under his will, and maybe use her to fight against the Valar in the first battle. But really interesting thing that maybe something to keep in mind, because it will come into play later, is she had disowned her master. That's a really important line. Manwë had her under his command, but when he went to do his thing or got captured and whatnot, she had disowned her master. So Manwë is not the master of Melkor is not the master of Ungoliant anymore, because she desired to be a mistress of her own lust. She had an agenda of her own, she had a desire of her own, she had needs of her own. She is a creature who hates light. She hungered to just like make absorb all light and make into something that's not light. She's darkness personified. She is really powerful being, left ignored by the Valar and everything down there in the south regions of in Avatar, and there she grew really, really strong, having all that power of darkness within her. And she does not have any master right now. And now is when Melkor finds her. In a ravine she lived, and took shape as a spider of monstrous form, weaving her black webs in a cleft of the mountains. There she sucked up all the light that she could find, and spun it forth again in dark nets of strangling gloom, until no light more could come to her abode, and she was famished. Now Melkor came to Avatar and sought her out, and he put on again the form that he had worn as the tyrant of Utumnu, a dark lord, tall and terrible. In that form he remained ever after, there in the black shadows, beyond the sight even of Manwë, in his highest halls. Melkor with Ungoliant plotted his revenge, but when Ungoliant understood the purpose of Melkor, she was torn between lust and great fear, for she was loath to dare the perils of Aman and the power of the dreadful lords, and she would not stir from her hiding. Therefore Melkor said to her, "Do as I bid, and if thou hunger still when all is done, then I will give thee whatsoever thy lust may demand, yea, with both hands." Lightly he made this vow, as he ever did, and he laughed in his heart. Thus did the great thief set his lure for the lesser. So the first passage pretty much describes where she lived. She takes up a form of a monstrous spider, weaving his webs and that, and she sucks light. She just like loves sucking light wherever she can find it, and just turns into darkness and gloom. So Melkor, about the form of Melkor here, so he's a Valar. He can take up different forms. He can guise himself in whichever forms he sees fit. But that power that he had is slowly diminishing. Because that power maybe came from goodness in him, the godness in him, from Ilúvatar maybe. And as he went away from the path of Ilúvatar, from light, he lost that power. Remember, he cannot create anything like other Valar can create, like Aule created, or like Yavanna created the Ents, or Manwë created the eagles, and Aule created the dwarves. He cannot create anything on his own. That's one of the things happened in the beginning when he went away from the path of light, away from the guidance of Ilúvatar. And this is the other thing that happened. So he takes up this form of a real evil giant dark lord, and he loses the ability to ever change back to anything else ever again when he does that at this moment. And so he, along with Ungoliant, being his old ally in the beginning, plot this revenge on Valar. He was able to convince her, just do as I say, and you will have all that you desire. You can have all the light you want to suck and turn it into something for yourself. So just do this for me, and you will have everything you ever desired. Obviously, he is a liar, he's a cheat, he's a fraud. He made this promise just for the heck of it, just to convince her that just do as I say and it'll be cool. And I don't think she believed him, but she played along with him, with it. You're like, yeah, okay, let's do it.
Well, now that she was found, it's like, what else could she do? Say no, and then, yeah, I don't know what else she could have done.
Yeah. Um, Oh, we'll know what she can do. But yeah, for the moment she's playing along. But just to emphasize it, as the passage even hence, Ungoliant understood the purpose of Melkor. That line should be in the mind a bit. Like she's not like a Balrog, for example, who doesn't have much critical thinking. She, in spending all this time away from Melkor when he was captured and whatnot, she came down south, developed her own needs and whatnot, and maybe a mind as well with some critical thinking. And now she understood while he was Melkor was selling her his plot. She understood the purpose of it. Okay, you can take the next one, and maybe after that we can call it.
A cloak of darkness she wove about them when Melkor and Ungoliant set forth, an unlight, in which things seemed to be no more, and which eyes could not pierce, for it was void. Then slowly she wrought her webs, rope by rope, from cleft to cleft, from jutting rock to pinnacle of stone, ever climbing upwards, crawling and clinging, until at last she reached the very summit of Hayar Mentir, the highest mountain in that region of the world, far south of great Tanaquitl. There the Valar were not vigilant, for west of the Pelori was an empty land in twilight, and eastward the mountains looked out, save for forgotten Avathar, only upon the dim waters of the pathless sea. I do think that passage is written quite beautifully.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
On another note, Twitter has had an update, and they're extending their downtime to 2 a.m. Friday.
Oh, man. Wow. Well, I have my day off tomorrow. Bloody hell! What the fuck am I gonna do? I think I'm gonna download Fortnite and kill people, or get killed by people. Get killed by 12-year-old assholes.
Wow.
Have you played Fortnite?
No, I don't really like shooter games, so I'm very good at them and don't enjoy them.
Oh, I'm not good at them at all. Every time I play them, then after losing 5 times in a row, I'm like, I'm going to play GTA or something. I wish Age of Empires Online still worked. That was a fun game. But okay, so she wove about them cloud, and a word here that is so cool. Love it. The word unlight, because she is darkness personified. She takes light and turns it into unlight. So that's like nothingness, like a black hole. And she waves her webs, and Melkor and her are on their way towards the Blessed Realm, hiding in the mountains and crawling from cliff to cliff. And because that area is pretty much, or was pretty much, ignored by the Valar. They were like, yeah, that's just nothing there, so just let's worry about the looking towards the mountains in Pelori, going towards Tanaquitl, and looking out towards Middle Earth and that end, and ignoring everything that was in the south. Yeah. Wait, where did you end the passage?
I ended it upon the dim waters of the pathless sea.
Okay. But now upon the mountain top dark Ungoliant lay, and she made a ladder of woven ropes, and cast it down, and Melkor climbed upon it, and came to that high place, and stood beside her, looking down upon the guarded realm. Below them lay the woods of Orome, and westward shimmered the fields and pastures of Yavanna, gold beneath the tall wheat of gods. Melkor looked north and saw afar the shining plain and the silver domes of Valmar gleaming in the mingling of the lights of Telperion and Laurelin. Then Melkor laughed aloud and leapt swiftly down the long western slopes, and Ungoliant was at his side, and her darkness covered them. Wow. They keep going north and trying to arrive in the Blessed Realm, and they finally arrive there and look at the woods of Rome and pastures of Ivana, and all the Blessed Realm is beneath their feet, and they look at the light of the two trees, Telperion and Laurelin, and this is Melkor's plan. The dude wants to destroy the two trees. This is his ultimate revenge. Because remember, the Valar... should I spell it? Well, the trees were a really unique creation of the Valar, and it's one of those things that they are not able to create again. Maybe it was just a one-off, that the power that Ilúvatar gave them, that they were able to make the two trees and make them in that, and it's something unique, and if it gets destroyed, they will not be able to make it ever again, much like the Silmarils of Fëanor. And here we end our session for tonight. Good one. Liked it.
Hey.
I didn't even make any notes for this last few fests. Just went on. It was cool, kind of. I do like noting though. Making notes kind of helps me have the things that I want to mention. I have some thoughts on that, but this just winging it kind of is nice as well. But it was good, and this concludes the session, and next week is gonna be continuing chapter 8, which by the name of it you should already know that it's of the darkening of Valinor, so bad things are gonna happen, sadly, but it's the Silmarillion, so bad things are always gonna happen. Really, there's it's the Silmarillion. I'm sorry, it's not a happy tale. There are some happy moments in it, but it's without spoiling too much, it's one of the saddest maybe overall book people might read. Has a lot of tragedy in it, and well, now we are on the path of it. So on the Quenta Silmarillion chapter 8 continued next time. I shouldn't say next week, because I don't know when we can commit again, or but maybe, I don't know.
Well, Loto will be down for probably some time,
so maybe tomorrow we'll have maybe tomorrow when we are bored. Maybe tomorrow we will have a next session again. All those 15 people who downloaded us on Anchor podcast.
Fun.
Yeah, we have 15 downloads on each podcast that we made for so far. on Anchor Anchor podcast was bought off by Spotify. I got the mail, that's all I know. I got the mail. So Ali, you had the Anchor podcast account. Well, good news, Anchor is being bought by Spotify. I'm like, great, now I'll be on Spotify. I'm happy, I'm fine with it. Put me on Spotify. But you can catch us and our podcast on YouTube, along with all the other videos of the gaming and whatnot. Just go to youtube.com/DGenXLE. See, I said it. I don't often say it. It's DGenXLE. It's like D-Generation X. And on Twitch, you can tweet at me. Although, not on Twitch. You can do. I think you can watch it on Twitch. You are watching it on Twitch. All that 3 people, and you can tweet at me on Twitter. How many followers do I have on Twitter? Michi, how many followers do you have on Twitter?
I personally don't have that large an account.
Let me see.
I've worked for other people and had over 2 million on those accounts, but that doesn't count. It's not my personal.
Yeah, personal account. Oh my goodness, I had more followers than I thought I did. I have 702 followers on Twitter. They might be just bloggers. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitch or Twitter, and just for the podcast, anywhere: iTunes, Android, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor, any podcast you can think of. Just type ESTELPOD and it will come up. And if you don't like the ESTELPOD name, then feel free to tweet at me a better name, and we'll think about the changing the name, right, Michi?
Sure.
Yeah. If you don't like it, yeah, just tweet that, and if you have a better name in mind. But the StelPod is all I got at the moment. And for the feedback, you can write the email on legendwriterx@gmail.com if you want, or just maybe write anything on Twitter or comments in the YouTube, and that will be acknowledged as well. Until next time, take care and Godspeed. Say bye, Michi.
Bye.
Ciao.